It's the Working Fans Podcast with the man they call Dave. And today I got 3-time Texas Review Pro Wrestling Manager of the Year, undisputed, by the way, Mr. Logan Pettis. Logan, thank you for joining the show, sir.
Absolutely. I am glad to be here. We are going to talk about things that I don't know a thing about. It's going to be uneducated and misinformed, but hey, that's the world we live in now. It doesn't stop you from having an opinion.
Absolutely. Let's jump into pro wrestling right away. Everybody's got a different era that they kind of got into. For you, what were your earliest memories of pro wrestling?
My earliest memories of pro wrestling, probably, it'd have to be the early 90s, maybe, I want to say about 92. I definitely remember 92. I remember the Royal Rumble. I remember with a tear, in my eye. And everybody, all of my friends, they were always big into Hulkamania, brother. And I did not have the time or day for Hulkamania. I don't know why. Nothing enticed me about Hulk Hogan. I don't know if it was the stupid mustache or he was bald. I don't know. I was always a Roddy Piper guy. I loved Roddy Piper. And again, you can ask the question, what was it about Piper that you liked so much? I don't know. Maybe it was that he just yelled and screamed a lot. I don't, he's just a little crazy because I'm a little crazy. And he wore a mean skirt. So
for sure. Roddy Piper. He's a legend.
It was something different.
Yeah.
It wasn't the guy in the underwear standing there, let me tell you this, and this is what's going to happen, dude. And we're going to, I kind of like Ultimate Warrior too. Yeah. And again, it was just the nonsense of the whole thing where he's just talking about the plane crashing and the whatever. And then he's like, what was that? And of course, being a manager like I am now, it's weird, even at that, because those were the guys that, of course, I watched a lot. I love Jimmy Hart. And I didn't grow to, I've gotten a lot of comparison throughout my career to Jim Cornette. And I didn't grow to appreciate Cornette until much later. Cornette wasn't a guy that was really around much in, the early 90s in WWF. That's what I watched primarily was the WWF because that's what we got at the house. I say that and I think back and I'd go over to my grandmother's house and watch WCW Saturday nights on Saturday nights. So, I got some WCW exposure, but primarily I was a WWF guy because that's what my friends were watching. And I had to see this Hulk Hogan and the Ultimate Warrior and all this stuff.
Who would you say were some influences as a manager?
Well, definitely Mr. Cornette. And that came later as people started to compare me to him. Actually, one of the first people to really just kind of pinpoint it was Jimmy Hart. I went to an event and I wasn't even... not like I was cosplaying as Jim Cornette or anything. I was messing around with my friend. There's a promoter down here in Texas who's known for wearing black and yellow. And, who else has a yellow tie? So I put my yellow tie on, and I think I had a black jacket on, maybe similar to this one. And I had, the deal. And I walked in, and Jimmy Hart was there, and he's signing autographs. And he looks at me, and he says, hey, baby, do you know who you remind me of? He goes, you remind me a lot of JC, Mr. Jim Cornette. Really? And then somebody behind me was like, yeah, that's kind of what I was thinking. I thought you were cosplaying as Jim Cornette. And I was like, well, no. And actually, at that point, I don't think I knew who he was, but I don't think I'd ever paid much attention to Jim Cornette until that moment. I, again, remember him because I watched a lot of, 90s WWF stuff. And I remember he was the guy that used to come on TV and he'd tell you, this is why the WCW show was bad. And this is equally why the WWF show was bad. Happened and that happened. And these two guys passed out of oxygen deprivation. And so, yeah, Jim Cornette has become a big influence, actually, to the point that was it last year before? Luigi Primo, the pizza guy.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
He was one of the RCW regulars. I was with RCW for about 5 or 6 years. And we had a little fun with that right after Jim Cornette had something to say about him on his podcast. He won a battle royal to face my client, who was the RCW champion at the time. And I walked out. Well, guess who won the pony? Here he is, Luigi Primo, the pizza guy. You ought to be ashamed of yourself, have the fat sold in oil and boiled in soap and whatever, and, fried chicken on your back on a scooter. And we won't go there. But I'll get us both thrown off the air, Dave. I can't make that reference. But yeah, Jim Cornette is one. In fact, there are times that I will pay homage to Mr. Cornette. I've got a pair of red pants and a red tie. It's great. Another one, Jimmy Hart. I used to love Jimmy Hart. If I could get somebody to airbrush me a suit with somebody on the back of it, like one of my clients, I always wanted that. I always thought that would be cool. Eric Bischoff actually is another one as far as inspiration for just, guys coming out and managing. I always loved that. I always loved he'd come out with that shit-eating grin on his face, that whole bit. I love that. Yeah, there are just another one who's not a manager. And I hear it sometimes when I'm delivering a promo for whatever reason is Shane McMahon. I love watching Shane O'Mac as a kid, but there are times when I'm talking and I can hear it. It comes out and I'm like, that's weird. Who is that? But those are some of the people that, and of course, the Brain, Bobby the Brain Heenan. Because one of my things that I always tell people, and there are clips of it, I will do something.
Yeah.
There's a reason, Dave, that I have my own belt, that I am the 3-time Texas Wrestling Review Manager of the Year, and that is because I am the smartest guy in the room. Am I the best manager? Maybe not necessarily, but I'm the smartest.
I think it's kind of interesting because remember maybe about a month or two ago, LA Knight was getting a lot of negative talk because he was like Rock and Stone Cold cosplayer. And it's like he brought up a great point. And I've heard people say this, you borrow from some of the best, and you inherently, people you watch and you listen to, they're gonna have an effect on you, even in your everyday life. So it makes sense.
As a musician, for those of you that don't know, I will sing on occasion. As a musician, I met my wife over at the singing school in Tennessee. So there you go. I remember standing on a stage doing a performance training class. And I remember the teacher, her name is Allison Durham Spear. And if you don't know who she is, Google her. She's been around. She stood there on the stage and she said, okay, she goes, I understand that you're trying to do Logan. You're doing your best to do Logan, which, by all means, yes, do that. But first, you need to find the artist in your head. Who is it that you see when you're singing this song? And that's what she said. She goes, is it Hank Williams Jr.? Is it Reba? Is it a gospel singer? Is it who are you envisioning that you are when you're standing on stage singing this song? And so, that's exactly what you do. We were all fans of this before we ever got it. How in the world did we ever get into this business anyway?
It makes sense. What would you say is a big strength of yours as a manager?
The putter that I carry around. That's probably my biggest strength. And the fact that I like to hide myself behind, 6'8", jacked up. That's my strongest asset.
Yeah, there you go. I like that. What would you say that is some of the best advice you received so far in pro wrestling?
It goes back to what we were talking about. It goes as far as being a knockoff, being a Make-A-Wish Jim Cornette or whatever. It's like, okay, that's working for you. But actually, I'll shout him out right now. Nigel Rabbit told me this because he's the guy, the first go around that I beat to be manager of the year. And that was fascinating to me because, I love Nigel. But Nigel said to me, don't let anybody mess with your character. You won manager of the year by being you. These people liked you, because I've had people, Dave, try to push me and say, we want you to be just like Jim Cornette. I'm like, I'm not, though. I'm Logan Pettis. I can draw inspiration from here and from over here, but I'm Logan Pettis. That's all I know how to be. So that was, I think, some of the best advice that I think I've got.
Yeah,
just keep being you.
That makes sense. Yeah, I mean, of course, right? Again, it goes back to what we're talking about. You may borrow a little bit, but you're going to put a certain slant on this or that, and it creates its own unique package.
I've taken and I've done movie references. I love, I'm a movie guy. I had one of my biggest feuds right now, I will tell you, is with Santa Claus. I hate Santa Claus, mostly because he's full of lies. He promised me, Dave, that for Christmas one year, he would bring me the World Heavyweight Championship. And he never delivered on that promise. And so I did. I walked out. It was RCW Christmas Chaos a year or so ago. And I did. I told everybody, if anybody wanted a last-minute gift idea, I want him brought right here with a big ribbon on his head. And I wanted to tell him what a cheap, rotten, lying, no good, four-flushing, spotty-livered, spineless, brainless, and then here he came. And then he hit me, Dave. And that's why I don't like Santa Claus. Me and him have unfinished business. I hope you're watching, Santa.
That's probably one of your least favorite moments. What would you say is one of your favorite moments in pro wrestling so far?
That's a tough one. Okay. There are so many good ones. Choking out Tom Latimer was pretty fun, but I don't know that I'd say that was the top. Okay. All right. One of my favorite moments, probably still to this day, is I was in a match. It was Anthony Andrews. Actually, it was RCW Mania, where Anthony wore these tights. And that's why I have, because it's easily identifiable. I was actually going to make a shadow box that hasn't materialized yet. We'll get there one day. But Anthony Andrews versus the Bear, Ryan Davidson, for the RCW International Championship at RCW Mania. This was last March, I think, March or April. And we're having the build up to the thing. And Ryan is married to a lady named Shiva Queen, and building up to it. I might have done a few dastardly things. I may or may not have had Shiva and Ryan attacked in their own gym. I also may or may not have interfered in a match, and Shiva hit me with a chair. Anyway, it was decided that I would be handcuffed to Shiva for the duration of this match. I think that was probably one of my favorite matches. It fell apart and it didn't work out for me, but it ended up being a whole lot of fun. I walked out of that a changed man. I don't know if anybody can see that right there, but there is a scar from the handcuffs right there. And so I will remember that forever. That's probably one of the top moments outside of probably me helping Anthony win the international championship, or when the Flocking Brawlers won the tag titles for the first time. That was pretty cool too. That was that moment. Okay. It goes back to having my own belt. As a manager, as somebody that's not necessarily athletically gifted, you get into this, and that's your dream. You always want to be the world heavyweight champion. You play the video games and you create yourself, and what do? You go in there and you beat Stone Cold for the title, and but then in real life, I'm never going to win a title, and I did. So I had one made, and then to lead your guys into victory for a championship, I celebrate with them in that. And so I think that ranks up there pretty high. You're
living your dream, right? You're getting, you're in the pro wrestling business, you're a manager. You've obviously had some stuff with music. We'll talk about that a little bit coming up too. But what would you say for people that want to chase their dream that maybe haven't done it yet? What's the biggest obstacle for you, and what did you have to do to kind of overcome that just to get to where you are?
I know it's a cliche, but you just got to go for it.
Right.
A lot of times we get in our own way. I got into wrestling, and people get upset with me because I was that kid to start with that walked in through the back door. Now, did I train? You bet your sweet bippy I trained. We can get into that, but I went like 3 times a week for a couple of years there with AWR in Lockhart with a guy by the name of Hernandez. And I'm going to be positive and upbeat. I was there. Okay. Boy, howdy was I there. And so anyway, I did that for a while. You just got to put yourself out there, and you got to, I grew up a lot in church. I always heard that expression, knock and it shall be given unto you. You cannot be afraid to ask people things. I used to go round and round with a promoter all the time in San Antonio. I used to say, dude, why don't you just call Shawn Michaels someday, HBK, and say, hey, you want to come down to the show? And he'd go, well, I can't afford HBK. And I was like, who says you won't catch him on a good day? And he'll just show up if he's in town. Put yourself out there. I made a silly video the other day where I said, and I'm being serious. If anybody's watching this right now, and you need a ring announcer, here I am. I made a video the other day, and now I'm sitting on the Working Fans podcast with a man called Dave.
Here we are. Absolutely. And it's funny because there's some interviews, in the past I've gotten to, especially the first year we do this, it's like, people are like, well, how'd you get, like, I don't want to name drop, whatever, Al Snow was on the show. We're like, how'd you do that? I'm like, I asked him. I just asked if you want to come on. And I asked other people too, and I won't name their names too, that didn't do the show because they had like this crazy money they needed. That's fine. Because it didn't matter. I asked, and either they could or they couldn't or whatever, but none of it hurt my feelings. You know what I mean?
And then I think that's the silliest thing I've ever heard too. It's like if you ask somebody and they go, oh, well, yeah, I'll be on your show, but it's going to cost you $5 billion. It's like, really? You can't sit down for, 30, 45 minutes out of your day? What are you doing?
Yeah, especially
on the internet, but, I'm known for my controversial and drama opinions, so there it is. That's my opinion on everybody wanting money for everything all the time. But
I think you touched upon it earlier because I was going to ask you too. What are some of the interests and other stuff you have done or have interested in besides pro wrestling? I know you mentioned music.
That's basically it. I did music. Like I said, I grew up in the church, and that's where, that you get that same story from everybody. That's where they started, but that's where I started doing quartets and this and that. I traveled for 6 years with a group called the New Generation Singers out of St. Joseph, Missouri. I'm originally from St. Joseph, Missouri. We traveled all over the country doing that. And then I stayed on with them for another 6 years doing publicity work and stuff for them. So yeah, I was there for like a decade, and then I got married and they booted me out. That's the rule. It's kind of a youth group that sings. Plug for New G real quick. But yeah, once you get married, they kind of, kick you to the curb. You're like, you're old. I worked in TV news for a while. And then when the TV news thing was over, I just kind of went and I was a soloist for a while and I sang. I've got stuff on Spotify. Look me up. If you look me up on YouTube, you'll find some weird mixture of wrestling and music. I always have to tell anybody that books me to go sing now, if you stumbled upon my wrestling, I'm sorry. I'm not sorry. But people get confused. They're like, what is going on here? Why is Khan punching you in the face? I don't know. I honestly don't. Why would you hit this face? I don't.
Staying on this for a minute too, we talked about your favorite moments in pro wrestling. What would be one of your favorite moments out of pro wrestling?
Wow. See, there are so many. Getting married's a big one.
Hey, I was hoping you'd say that because you talked about your wife, and I'm like, if she watches this down the road, you got to say it.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's just, you asked me that, and it's like,
yeah, right.
As if it's like they don't anyway. But I've had going back to it. I have been blessed enough to get to do and see and be a part of so many awesome things that it's hard to just pinpoint one specific deal as far as like life goes.
Yeah.
Outside of wrestling. Yeah. I mean, I haven't had a perfect life by any stretch of the imagination, but if I'm being honest, it hasn't been bad. I've always said, it's good to be me.
I would imagine you have to have a supportive wife if you're going to chase after a dream like pro wrestling and your music. And
oh, she thinks I'm insane.
But she tolerates you, so that's good.
Other people know I'm insane. Somebody wants to call me out for saying this, but I've always said I would love to sit back and know the number of people that are going, is he working? Is he shooting? What is he doing? And again, it comes back to what I said, full circle. I am Logan Pettis.
Right.
Logan Pettis is me. This is not a gimmick name. That is my name. I work in water half the time. I've got licenses
that's who you are.
I can't help it that I'm like this, that I'm the greatest manager in Texas.
Favorite music?
So let's go, yeah.
Favorite music band or artist?
See, again, you got to think long and hard about this. Favorite music band or artist? Right now, well, okay, I can't even say right now. I dig Elton John, man.
Yeah.
I like me some Elton John. I don't know if it's the costumes, if it's the music. When I'm in San Antonio a few months back on his Farewell Yellow Brick Road tour. A lot of my musical taste is all old stuff. Well, another one of the best concerts I ever went to, another guy that I enjoy, Stevie Wonder. Dudes that play the piano apparently are my thing now that I'm thinking about it. But no, Stevie went out there at, he's 70 some odd. And dude played for like 3.5 hours with no break, just went hard too. So, and actually, okay, here's one off the wall, completely different, because I could stay on the music subject all day and tell you why I like this and that and the other. But somebody I grew up with their music when she sang with her mother, but I've recently discovered her as a soloist and have really enjoyed her work, and that's Winona Judd. And I'm like, some people might look at that and be like, "Oh, really, Winona Judd? You can think of anything more masculine than that?" And I'm like, no, I just really dig what she's doing. It's that voice and that attitude and so if she were a wrestler, I'd beg to be her manager.
I like it. Favorite movie?
Hook.
Okay, Hook. I like that.
That one I can answer. And Hook, I love Hook. Hook is one of those movies that grows with you.
Mm-hmm.
Call it a living movie. When I was a kid, one of my biggest influences, I've done acting and done some other little things too, all over the place. I could never figure out what I wanted to be when I grew up, so I just never did. But Robin Williams was my guy when I was a kid. I grew up watching reruns of Mork and Mindy on Nick at Night, and then Aladdin came out, and I thought that was great. And basically everything that the dude was ever in, I was right there. Mrs. Doubtfire, What Dreams May Come, which is the saddest damn movie I've ever seen. Hook is one of those movies. Of course, I like Robin Williams. I like Peter Pan. I like the story of Peter Pan. And they combine those things together. And so when you're a kid, it's this fantasy movie with the pirates and the adventure and the thing and, this. And then as you grow older, you start to relate to Peter, as he is older and you start to lose that innocence. There are no such thing as fairies, that kind of a thing. And then God forbid I ever have children, because then I'll just completely lose the plot and then just be right there. But it's one of those great movies that, has kind of grown with me. I've grown with it, however you want to look at that. So yeah, I think Hook is I'd say Hook's my favorite movie. Batman.
And finally, before we get back to wrestling, favorite comfort food?
Favorite comfort food? KFC mashed potatoes.
I like that. Solid. KFC's always good.
For anybody that's a fan of South Park, I've always agreed with Cartman in that, by the way, Cartman is another person people have compared me to. I don't know if that's good or bad, but no, I've always been right there. It's like, when I get famous, I want a hot tub full of KFC gravy. Yeah. And so I'm right there with you, Cartman.
Manager of the year 3 times in a row. What's the goal for 2024?
Just keep going.
Yeah.
Keep going. And I'm trying to expand and do other things. Most of my career, I've been pretty loyal to one promotion. I feel like Cody Rhodes all of a sudden in that, what do you want to talk about? And again, I'm going to be positive and upbeat, much probably to everybody's surprise, because I could spill the tea, Dave.
Yeah.
Oh my, could I spill the tea? And I'm not going to. But I was loyal to one promotion for a good number of years. And that promotion has decided to go in a different direction. And so, yeah, here I am. I'm basically a free agent, baby. So I'm trying to do anything and everything. I told you that when I wanted to get into this business, I wanted to be the ring announcer. And so I'm taking the time to stop and try and figure out how to be the ring announcer. I can do this. You talk about promoting something. Here it goes. I can say all the ring announcer things that you need me to say. Like, you're new, and the following contest is scheduled for one fall. I did a thing called the Mrs. California. This is complete sidetrack.
Yeah.
My brain. But I did a thing called the Mrs. California. It was a show deal in high school. And that was when I realized that I could do that big voice thing. And I walked around like this, talking to people. And they go, why are you speaking like that? And I go, because this is how an announcer talks. And so, yeah, and that kind of snowballed from there. And then, yeah, I was like, I want to be a ring announcer. You talk about guys that I also looked at off to the side. One of my favorite dudes was Mean Gene Okerlund, let me ask you something, Dave. Why did you this and that happened? And I'll put that cigarette out. But yeah, I mean, him and Howard Finkel. I love Howard Finkel. Howard Finkel was my the legit Howard Finkel. I know it was him. He was a Facebook friend of mine, and so he'd chime in every so often. Hey, how are you doing? And I don't know if he just rotated through people every so often, but and I met him at WrestleMania, and he was one of the nicest people. And so, yeah, and that's why I tell people in honor of him, they go, what qualifications do you have to be a ring announcer? And I was like, none, I guess. I said, I went to the Howard Finkel School of the Projected Voice. And so that's what I tell people as my kind of tribute to the Fink. But yeah, 2024, I'm trying to do whatever I can and have just as much fun as I have in the last 5 or 6 years and just be in it.
Is there any social media you want to plug?
I'm trying to figure this whole thing out. I've had my personal page forever, and it seems like people can't differentiate this from that. I feel like Vince McMahon. Where does Mr. McMahon end and Vince start? And it's like, it's right down the middle. I do have my page. Just look for Logan Pettis. And if you try to friend me, I will probably say no. But follow my page. It's me. It's this picture right here, but it's blue. By the way, the shirt, prowrestlingtees.com/Logan Pettis. Buy my Manager of the Year shirt.
There you go.
You can get it in the beautiful yellow and black, or I also have it in red, white, and black, or I've got the fun one with the Texas flag. And I'm hoping to get some more merchandise and stuff and start building that as a brand, hopefully. But I have that page. I have YouTube. Get on YouTube. Search me up. Other than that, I mean, I have X now?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I have X, but I'm not quite 40 yet, but I've become that curmudgeon old man that is just like, what is this newfangled equipment? No, get it away. It's just like coming on here. You're like, I'm going to send you this link for this thing. I was like, God, please, I hope it works.
Well, it did, and you're here.
What is this new thing that you're trying to get me to do? No, I'm getting better. I stopped. I'm just rambling at this point, but hey, whatever. I stopped gaming as a kid, it seems like, and I got a big boy job. And that big boy job, of course, is managing, world heavyweight champions. But I got me a big boy job, and I quit gaming. And when I quit gaming, all bets are off. I had cousins that made fun of me because I didn't know how to operate the Nintendo Wii. And then, everything past that, it's at least, I will say this, at least Sony, the PlayStation has stayed pretty well the exact same through the years. But because I was a Nintendo kid growing up. But yeah, I know technology,
You figured out how to do StreamYard. You are here. You're the Manager of the Year 3 times in a row. And I think you'll get it for the 4th year in a row. It's been a pleasure. Thank you for doing the show.
Hey. Call me back if you ever need somebody to prattle on about absolutely nothing some more, because I